All right. Good afternoon, and thank you for being with me today. I know it's an Indian summer outside. I know it's better to maybe stop here and walk outside and sit in the sun. But thank you for being here to think with me about inclusion. And so this half an hour is on inclusive organizations. And of course, inclusion is another trend word like sustainability, where you should be inclusive, you should be sustainable, but where to start? Because that's what happens with trend words. It's such a big thing that you don't know where to start or how far you should go. And let's kick off with some numbers, just to sketch you how the situation in 2025 looks like, at least in Belgium. So 1 out of 3 people living in Belgium has non-Belgian backgrounds. So actually that's a stunning number that a lot of people don't know. I have to admit that we count all European origins with this, so also your Italian restaurant or your Dutch neighbor, but it's a number that says a lot. Foremost because it's an exponential curve. When you look at the numbers of 20 years ago or 10 years ago, it was way lower, so it's growing quite fast. And that's because if you look at the pyramid of ages, you see that people with non-Belgian backgrounds are in the base of the pyramid, so that means the kids and the teens growing up. So you know that the world is going to be way diverser than it was yesterday or today, and it's a reality if you like it or not. But the world of where in the classes everybody was called Jan or Piet or Jean or Pierre, that's definitely over. So it's a reality for a lot of people. Even in smaller villages and towns, this is the reality, I think, of your children, grandchildren, your own reality that you see. So that's one constatation. Another thing, I don't know if you're in education since you're here in the education village, but estimations of people that are going to school at this moment, so not the older population, is that 15 to 20% is neurodiverse. Of course, that's also because we do a lot more diagnosis than before. But it's a constatation also that opens maybe your eyes, like okay, or confirms something that you already felt. Like there's a lot of differentiation that you need to use if you're a teacher nowadays. Another thing that has arisen in the more recent years are things around gender identity, which is far more fluid than it used to be. The binary distinction between men and women and the gender identities that came with it, but also female empowerment in general is something that is far more present than it used to be. You after Me Too, you can't say things anymore that were completely accepted 20 years ago. And then another thing, which is, I think, a little bit underlined, is a generational stretch that we need to make, because it's for the first time in history that 4 generations are working together in the workforce. So we have the Gen Zers coming in on the labor market, but we still have the baby boomers that are going out because they need to work longer. So this generational stretch is really far, causing that you maybe have teachers that are very far, 4 generations away from their students or colleagues, where misunderstandings can happen because you just grew up in another generation, and the digital skills are hard to follow because they change really rapidly for the older people in general. I'm generalizing, of course. So this is another thing that we need to take into account. So what is another thing in the framework that is also a reality, at least I'm talking about Belgian context, is the unemployment rate has never been as low as today, meaning that there's a lot of open job openings, so a lot of job openings that are looking for workforce, but they can't be filled in. So that's also a constatation that puts pressure on a market, on a reality in your organization, in your school. So all of this the reality in 2025 is causing questions like, okay, how can I attract and retain my employees? Who will be my future, I don't know what your background is, but as an entrepreneur, who will be my future clients potential? Who will be my students, my colleagues? And how far can you go in differentiating in, for example, the classroom? If you need to take into account all these differences between people in terms of ages, in terms of cultural backgrounds, how far can you go? And this also causes, I'm giving some Flemish examples, I'm sorry, but I don't know too much about the Wallonian context. But this is also causing a lot of questions like, okay, what am I still allowed to say? What can I, what is acceptable to say or to think? Because I think you also agree with me that we live in a world where there's a lot of polarization. I grew up in the 90s, and so, of course, the problems were there as well in the 90s, but I think it's harmful that people are in two camps right now. Either you're a racist or a sexist, or you're woke. And of course, the reality is in the middle somewhere, and there's room for, and I need room for or space for more nuances there. So yeah, here's some examples on Zwarte Piet, for example, or I don't know if you knew about Chef Huybers, is he called like that? Yeah. This professor who made a really who made a remark on women that maybe was acceptable in the 90s, but he got sued for it some years ago. So I'm challenging you here to ask, in a world where every group needs their own identity, we have Black Lives Matters, we have gay prides, we have things like She Did It that I'm about to present. So how, to what extent do we need safe spaces, or do we need brave spaces? How far can we go in building inclusive societies? I'm just challenging it here because I don't want to confirm like thought patterns that you maybe already have. And who am I to have a right to speak about this? I'm the founder of She Did It, and this is my team, at least part of my team. Luckily, there's also a man, so we can say that we're inclusive. But we are focusing on women with migration backgrounds. So my team is also representation of the people that we want to reach. And the goal is to help them start their businesses in Belgium. And why did I do so? 7 years ago, I had 2 commercial businesses myself before discovering that that I had some steps ahead of other people that don't have an entrepreneurial family like me, because I had my mother and my grandfather who also were business owners. So I had this role model, but also a contact line, a direct contact line, to ask for people in their network, to ask for info and help. And at some point where people came to me and asked, Lien, how can I start? How can I start my business? Where can I go? I realized that that there was a mismatch between the existing ecosystem, and I hope I'm not offending somebody from VOCA or Unizo or UCM in this room, but there's a mismatch between this group of people and the existing system. So that's why how She Did It was born. We grew very, very rapidly from a team of 3 to 18 in a year and a half, because we have so many people that want to follow what we offer. Here's a small overview of what you do. There's a youngster program for girls as from the age of 15. We do most of what we do is business coaching for starters, so for people that want to have their business plan and financial plan accompanied. Then we have a test space. It used to be a concept store, but now we're opening it up and not using only product owners, but people that want to test their concept in Antwerp. And we have our own fund where we work with interest-free loans. And apart from that, we have a large community. We have around 600 people per year that we accompany in the programs, and the community is around 5,000. You can find us in 3 places. In Antwerp is our headquarters, but we also here in Brussels and in the Wintercircus in Ghent. Working in 4 languages, by the way. And why I'm putting this picture of me and my co-founder here, Siham, is to say that is also to say to bring this nuance in the debate, because in smaller rooms I tend to make jokes about our relationship. We're really that work wives. We really appreciate each other really much about qualities that the other has, and for example, I really appreciate for some things that she can do and I can't. But outside work, we're not really friends, and maybe that's also not. Maybe that's also not a bad thing, but I always tend to make the joke like, don't put me with her on a plane to Spain for a holiday, because it wouldn't work. We have a completely different expectation of how a holiday looks like, but that's also okay, I think. So just to bring you a little bit air in the debate. Now, how can you work on inclusion? There's a lot of focus on communication, and of course communication is important, but it's also only the surface, because communication is always the result of actually the values that you have. If inclusion, for example, is not really something that you want to work on in your organization, the communication will not be good. Same goes for sustainability, let's say. I don't know if anybody remembers this Belfius campaign from 3 years ago. It was in, you could see it, for example, in Borgerhout. And maybe you don't have to be from Antwerp if you know that it was a mismatch to hang it there in Borgerhout. This image of, okay, how, for the people that don't speak Dutch, ondernemers means entrepreneurs. So they wanted to display their love for their entrepreneurs, right? But it's hard to find even the women in this image, because they're dressed like men, so of course a lot of reaction came to this image, and there was a counter campaign afterwards. But of course, it's not a good idea to show that you're not really connected to the society of nowadays. I don't say that you have to have a full representation of, like the Benetton campaigns, one of each. I don't say that, but it's good to think about how you come across. Like H&M made this huge mistake as well by emphasizing, so by putting the black kid, the coolest monkey in the jungle sweater, and the white kid, the jungle survival expert. Of course, this is emphasizing stereotypes is also, I mean, something you just think about the images that you use. What are good examples is, for example, Albert Heijn worked with this, well, he's not really famous, but I would say a famous Antwerp rapper for their campaign on Ramadan. But the good thing about it is that they didn't really only use his like appearance or his image, but they really asked him to work on the campaign. So he was the brains behind the campaign. And same with ASOS, who displayed people with disabilities in their campaign, but there was no focus on this exactly on that. And also they engaged them in the thinking about the campaign before. Bol.com is also, well, the point I want to make is about this here. Is also really good about is also really good at attracting people, about being a reflection of the whole society, let's say, and attracting people and understanding their target audience. But like I said, it's not about the communication or the images that you choose. It's really about the values that you have as an organization. I don't know where I should place you. It's really hard to talk to an audience where I don't know where you're working. But in the organization in which you're working, if you want to change things, if it's hard to find people, let's say like my colleagues, it's probably because it's not really in the core of your organization to be inclusive or to be sustainable or to be I don't know, anything else, because it should be in your value house, let's say. And also a point I want to make is that diversity is not the same thing as inclusion. So if you have your diversity, let's say, stakes or things that you can count doesn't really mean that you put all these pieces of the puzzle like a puzzle, because that's what inclusion means, that everybody makes sense and everybody can contribute. That's a little bit illustrated by this pyramid, where you can see that, of course, if you count heads, then there will be diversity, but it's not real diversity, you know? And the same with that pride campaign of a company. It's typical, something that we see is people are of course, because it's a trend that you are on certain days of the year that you're highlighting how gay friendly that you are, for example, but the next day things go back to normal. So this is just an illustration of our own house of values. It shouldn't be completely the same, but you should build well, if it's really a point you want to work on, you should build it in your house. So the conclusion for you is, do you want to work on this, or don't you want it? It's a train that is running, so it is there. These changes that I highlighted in the beginning are there. So it's up to you to either catch it or to let it go. But if you let it go, you miss you miss also some economic, apart from, of course, that it's nice to be inclusive, it's also a matter of missing some economic opportunities as an entrepreneur or as a teacher even. So because of as an entrepreneur or manager, you will reach, of course, the wider audience. If you're, let's say, in the 1/3 figure of people with migration backgrounds, and it's only becoming bigger, you're missing just a lot of economic opportunities if you're not attracting them as your clients, but also as your colleagues, and the colleagues that are willing to think about the possible clients. So that's the economic reality, and also, of course, that that the general public is a little bit more sensitive to this topic. So you're also seen as a brand to be more trustful and credible, but also as an attractive employer, let's say. So for your employer building as well, or employer image it's important to think about is how you come across in your social media and everything, because the general public is far more aware of this. And then as a teacher or in education, it's of course hard to know everything, for example, from all forms of neurodiversity. It's really hard to take into account all kinds of backgrounds, all kinds of beliefs, and to know everything about every culture. It's also hard to maybe cross the age gaps that are there, but it's more a necessity than a luxury to at least try, because you want to reach these targets with your students. You want to you want that your students have a safe learning environment, and you also want to be a role model for them. So at least try. And what I can say about this is, it's not. I don't have the like miracle solution for the question that we're facing, because of course I'm not lying about this. This is a real problem, right? You read about these things the whole time in the media, but I really think it is something like sustainability, like changing the climate starts with small steps within yourself. Like in the 90s when I was growing up, we didn't. How do you say that? We didn't have the blue bags, I think, for the plastic, right? And so we started doing that, and it was small things in households, and the same goes for inclusion. Same goes for if you are, for example, a good example is actually when I go to the school of my kids. I see that all the Muslim mothers are in one group and all the Belgian mothers are in the other group. And actually that's a shame to not cross these bubbles, because you have a common interest. You have a common interest, and which is your kids that are in the same class. So the same goes with your neighbors. You have the common interest for your neighborhood to be safe and pretty and not filthy. So try and cross these bubbles and try to understand each other by actually just being aware, and that's the first step of your own framework, because we're highly, of course, influenced by the ones that we are surrounded with. If we are surrounded by people that look only like us, then it's more likable that your framework is quite narrow. Same goes with social media, of course. We're surrounded by people that think like us. So just be aware of that, and then you see what can happen. Well, you're also allowed to make mistakes. You can just try, because it can start with small steps. And maybe one last takeaway I would like to give is to ask more and to assume less. So if you just ask open questions to people, that can be this first beginning of the breaking the bubble. So if you want to talk more about this, just raise your hand and ask questions. But that's what the message that I want to bring on behalf of She Did It. Thank you. There's no microphone for questions. I'll repeat questions if anybody has one. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So her questions, you're in IT or? So she works in a company on telephony IT, and she says that there's very few women in the field, very few women in the team, and so they want to attract more women and also more people of color, but it's hard to start somewhere because it's white male dominated. Yes, it is hard, because you have this whole thing of that starts in education, that girls tend to study less for the options that end up in your positions. So it's not something also that we can, that we can solve. Yeah, but of course there are people with that degree, so you could attract them. And I think if you want to stand out as a company, you should listen to what I just said. Like, if you really want to make it a deal, if you really think it's important, I'm sure you'll get there. If the direction, if the top of this pyramid is convinced that it should be a priority, it will be a priority, and it will change, and people will feel it as authentic, more authentic than, let's say, that you make a website with a Benetton campaign, like, oh, we're so inclusive, but everybody feels that it's not the case. If you then go and look at a team, or go and look at the mission and vision of the organization, and it's never mentioned somewhere, then people will not apply for your company, but maybe for a company that really cares about this topic. But it's true that it is hard. It is also getting hard for us to attract men in our team, and that's the world on upside down. Also because you have this certain image, and it's hard to change that image as a brand. Yeah. You wanted to react? Or no, I saw you. No, okay. Anyone else wanted to raise something about their context? Yeah? Okay, so you want to know what's my opinion on brave spaces or safe spaces? Well, I do think we need safe spaces as a start. Because we need spaces where people feel recognized, and where they can be all layers of themselves, because it's never about this one only trait. I'm not only Lien, the CEO of She Did It, I'm actually also so much more in my identity. So I do think we need safe spaces, and She Did It. It is definitely also one, to be able for people to feel accepted, recognized, to feel strengthened and empowered before they break their bubbles. But I do think in the same time that it's dangerous to keep to stay in the bubbles, and that's also something that I see a little bit happening right now. So because of course, also because of social media, because then if you surround yourself only in these bubbles, then it's really hard to discover that there's whole other opinions and people with other frameworks around you. Yeah. Anybody else, or shall we go outside? Yeah, she wanted to see the value house again. This is well, yeah, it's the fundaments, the walls, and the roof, right? I'm actually also not sure what kind of theory is behind it, but it's called value house. You can look it up. Yeah. Okay, but thank you for being here.